If you're thinking to take your very first trip to a Sandals resort, first of all, let me say congratulations, you are in for a treat. But I do know that this comes with a lot of questions, of course, and in this video today, we're going to answer a lot of these questions, kind of the first things that you're really going to want to know for those who are first-timers at a Sandals resort. If we haven't met before, I'm Madison, founder and CEO of Reliant Destinations and MyCaribbeanLuxury.com. We are YouTube's #1 Sandals and Beaches experts, and we are here to help. Speaking of helping, we are one of the top servicers globally for Sandals and Beaches Resorts, and we would of course love to help you plan that next trip to tropical paradise at no charge to you whatsoever with lots of extra value. You can reach out at hello@ReliantDestinations.com. Again, that's hello@ReliantDestinations.com, and we would love to assist. But for now, let's jump into this video. Of course, reminding you to have a look in that description below for lots of information as we dive in. Let's go. Number one, let's talk about what these service tiers are at Sandals. What is all of that about? Yes, at a Sandals resort, there are 3 tiers typically. That is your entry-level tier, which is also called the luxury tier. Then you have the middle tier, which is Club Sandals, and then you have the top tier, which is Butler Elite. There are a few resorts that have outliers. For example, Sandals Royal Plantation at Ocho Rios, Jamaica is an all-Butler resort, and you have a property, for example, like in Sandals Emerald Bay in the Exumas in Bahamas, that is only club and above at that resort. But for most of the properties, what I'm saying here is going to be applicable with the 3-tier service. Now, with all 3 of these tiers, you are going to get the all-inclusive package, but there are definitely some extra benefits you want to know if you are thinking of having one of those higher tier room categories. First, let's start with Club Sandals. At Club Sandals level A, you do have a dedicated lounge with concierge. You check in this lounge and you have a more personalized experience from the onset. These rooms also have a stocked bar that does include liquor of your choice. For Club Sandals level guests, there are also some dedicated activities and excursions for members of that service tier, and the list goes on. But for example, things where the room positioning is, typically club level rooms are going to have a better position, a little bit larger, nicer amenities, and things like that as well. In fact, for lots of people that don't really care about some of the extra enhancements, things for example, like you get a bathroom at this tier, for some people that's not a big deal, but for some people, just having that nicer room and a nicer position, the more modern feel, that sort of thing, that is often what is kind of the #1 thing for a lot of people. Then that upper level tier is the Butler Elite. And yes, that is where you get a dedicated private butler who services everything you can possibly need when you're staying at Sandals. So at this level, you can have a meal from any of the restaurants in the resort brought directly to your suite. So if you want a in-suite romantic dinner, or maybe on your patio or balcony overlooking the ocean, for example, yes, your butler can do that for you. Speaking of room service does start at the Club Sandals tier, so it's not an inclusion at that entry level tier we talked about. But for Club and Butler Elite, yes, room service is available, and there is an expanded 24-hour menu for butler guests. And I think it goes without saying that, of course, the most prestigious suites at Sandals are all Butler Elite suites. So any of the super modern innovations and things like that, those will all be part of the Butler tier. Number 2 is about pre-check-in. So pre-check-in is helpful, but it's not mandatory. So we do get a lot of people contacting us every week that are kind of freaking out because for whatever reason, they cannot check in. Their credit card's not letting them check in, or they're having some internet issue, or whatever it might be. And we always try to help them through that, but also remind them that it's not mandatory, but it is helpful. So for those staying in that upper Butler Elite tier, I definitely recommend downloading the Sandals app. And on that app, there is a Butler Preferences section where you can do that as part of your check-in process as well to kind of customize your stay a bit more. But for everyone, normally you would want to go on that Sandals app and you would want to do the online check-in process. And there it will ask you for a credit card. So yes, a credit card to put as a hold authorization against the room. So this is for incidentals, and also meaning that you don't have to carry a card around with you if you wanted to do something, for example, like purchase a spa package, in the spa, or something from the gift shop. That will already be part of your room and is already hooked up, so you don't have any extra complications there. Now, I do mention credit. If you try to use a debit, it is almost certainly going to reject it, which is where a lot of people get confused. It's very simple reason for this. With a credit card, particularly a US credit card, you can do a hold authorization against the card, which means, for example, you can put the amount on there, and if it's not used whatsoever, then it's instantly released back. If you're doing it as a debit card, it means you actually have to fully charge the card, and then you have to figure out a way to refund that card afterwards, and it gets a bit more complicated for everyone. And so for that reason, a credit card is what is asked for. This is common practice. It's the same for most hotels worldwide, and if you've ever had a rental car, for example, you'll know that they definitely always want credit and not debit cards for the exact same reason. Number 3, just kind of talking about the fact that going to a foreign country is an exciting proposition. It also comes with a few challenges, but it really is a unique experience that I think you will love. So some of you who are going to Sandals for the first time, this will be your first time outside of your country. So most people watching this video are coming from the USA or Canada, and for some of you, that'll be your first time to use that international passport. For others of you, you've been abroad before but haven't been to these particular destinations, and for a very few lucky of you, you've been to the islands before but your first time in Sandals. For all of you, you will be aware that of course there are some amazing cultural differences which you will learn and you will grow to appreciate during your stay as well. I like to always remind each guest to a Sandals that you are visiting a different culture. So it is always wise to make sure that you're not imposing your own culture upon the location, but coming with an open mind and accepting the differences which you will find. There are things, for example, like we call island time. The pace of life is a bit slower in the Caribbean, right? So especially if you're coming from a big city, Houston, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, so on, where there is a bit more of a hustle bustle to life, you won't find this in the Caribbean, and the same is in resorts, where it's a more laid-back environment. It does mean that sometimes things take a little bit longer, but as long as you understand that with an open mind and appreciate the many other things that there are while you're waiting for whatever it might be, you will learn to appreciate very quickly that there is some beauty in this relaxation part of the local lifestyle. Talking about culture and some differences and things like that, also let's mention currency for a moment. The thing to know is that you don't need to bring any local currency, which is great. So some people get very worried about trying to pre-order some local currency, like Jamaican currency, St. Lucia, something like this, before their trip from their local bank in the States or Canada. You don't need to worry about this. In fact, what we recommend is come with US dollars, and particularly some small denominations, some 1s and 5s and 10s. That is the kind of stuff you want to have on you. But in terms of anything in the resort itself, your card will suffice. So don't worry about that whatsoever. But of course, do double check your particular card. There are still some card carriers out there that do want you to kind of pre-notify them of your travels. And we do see, not too common anymore luckily, but we do occasionally see that a bank or a credit card institution will block the card the moment you make a purchase abroad if they think that it's a scam and weren't expecting you to travel. So it's always a good idea to see if there's anything you need to alert your bank or financial institution about on this matter before your trip. For first-timers, also do remember that because you are going to a different country, there are different laws, different things like that. So you do want to make sure that you are abiding by the terms, the customs, and most importantly, the laws of wherever you are headed, and that does include things you're bringing to the island. Now, luckily, the vast majority of things that you would bring anywhere else, to a Florida trip, for example, you can also bring there to the island. But there are some things, for example, like prescription medication, that it does depend depend island to island in terms of whether you can bring it. Controlled substances, for example, even things like Adderall, a lot of people forget that's a controlled substance. And for some of the islands, if you arrive with that and haven't declared it and don't have pre-authorization, it's seen as basically drug importation. So it's just wise to always kind of think about what you need to bring and see if there's anything you need to investigate on that. Now, most of the islands do have a Ministry of Health, which simply you can usually have a quick conversation with via email or phone, a letter from your doctor, and can get pre-authorization for whatever you need. But it is something you definitely just want to remember. Even natural things like CBD oil, which is becoming very popular in North America now, some of the islands that's not tolerated whatsoever, while other of the islands it is normal. So it's just worth thinking about which place you're going and what might be normal where you live versus normal in this new destination. Of course, I know that's all daunting, so if you do need any guidance as you're thinking to book a trip, or if you've just booked a trip and kind of freaking out about this, you can get in touch. hello@reliantdestinations.com, and we can guide you through this. No worries whatsoever. Next up is talking about flights. So if you haven't booked a flight already in your Sandals package, I'll just give you some helpful information on this. First, it is my own personal professional recommendation, not Sandals' recommendation in this instance, but my own, that you do book airfare direct with the airline and not a consolidator. So that means not Expedia, not Skyscanner, so on and so forth. I have found in my own personal experience that by booking directly with the airline, that is typically where you will find that you have the very best kind of service and best pricing, best flexibility. If you need to make changes, quickest routes, having a 24-hour call center for that flight, things like that. So in my own personal recommendation, I recommend booking your flights directly with the airline. We had a really big time during the pandemic seeing kind of everything you can imagine, and airfare was something that was an absolute nightmare for anyone in this industry during the pandemic. But we learned a lot of lessons the hard way during the pandemic, and one of those is about how airlines just typically treat their customers, and we have learned that they typically treat direct customers better. So if you're not going to be saving a lot of money and there's not a lot of point in putting it in your Sandals package, my recommendation, book direct. Now, Sandals does prefer that you book it as part of a package, but of course that's because it is a convenience thing and allows them to have some better planning on their behalf. But in terms of a consumer, I think it's in your advantage to book direct. Now, if you have booked your flight with Sandals, you will have that as a package item. So any changes you need will need to go through the air team during the operating normal hours at Sandals. So if you do really want to have air in your Sandals package, we can definitely help you with that. That's no problem. We do have plenty of guests that make that choice. If you do go and you book your airfare direct, that's very easy as well. And all you need to do is when you're checking in online, you simply just use the option to put in your flight number, and then automatically the grounds controller for your included or private transportation, that those people will be notified immediately, and from there can plan and make sure that whatever inclusions you have or anything you have booked extra for a private transfer, that all of that is arranged. So you're not losing anything whatsoever, regardless of how you decide to book your airfare. Number 5, when you arrive at the airport, the experience and arrivals process on the Sandals side of things can be a little bit different depending on where you are arriving. So for example, at somewhere like, let's say Exuma Airport, if you're headed to Sandals Emerald Bay, there's basically just a little desk on the outside of the airport there, where there will be someone with a clipboard or a tablet who will check off your name, put you into a transfer, and send you to the resort. It's as simple as that, but that's because this airport is literally a shack. I always joke with my fellow colleagues in the industry, we call it the Exuma Shack because it's pretty much too small to be an airport. But let's jump over to somewhere, for example, like Jamaica, where we have the Montego Bay International Airport, the MBJ Airport. So we have a lot of Sandals guests coming into there. And there's actually a large dedicated Sandals lounge there, which has a lot of amenities, has beverages, including alcoholic beverages, has snacks, has a dedicated desk concierge, has everything you need there in this luxury lounge while you're waiting for your transfer. So the experience can be a little bit different island to island. So it's just something to remember that if you are going for your first time at Sandals, depending on which island you are going to, your experience might be different. And when you go back to Sandals, which we hope you will go back and rebook, of course, when you are on property, which by the way, we can continue the service if you're using our service currently. One thing to know with that is that maybe your next time you go, if you're going to a different destination, it might just be a little bit different on that arrivals experience. Not necessarily better or worse in any way, but just different. Something to remember. In number 6, I'd like to remind you that every resort is different. Yes, there are a lot of shared things across the resorts in terms of the inclusions. So every resort is going to have standard inclusions, for example, like those top shelf beverages, fine dining, included water sports, things like that. However, each of the resorts does offer a very unique vibe. I do have a video on this channel if you want to kind of jump into the different vibes and feels at Sandals and see which one might be the best for you. But what I would like to recommend actually is in the description below, there is going to be a link. And in that link is actually something I've put together. So it is a real-time kind of survey that allows you to answer some questions about your personality, your travel type, and see which resort is best for you. So that's something which I heavily recommend. Now, if you are on a phone, it doesn't play so well inside of this browser that pops up. So just hold and click and copy and move it over to your own phone browser where you can have a better experience with that. But you can see which resorts kind of fit your personality style. Some are more modern, some are more classic, some are more lively, some are more quiet. Some have a lot of amenities and a lot of restaurants. Others have a very select few that are very high quality. So there is a big range here of things that you want to know to kind of fit the right property to your own personality. Number 7, tipping is included, but there are some exceptions. And so if you are a first timer at Sandals, know this: tipping overall is forbidden at Sandals and is considered to be part of your inclusive program. Yes, there are a few exceptions. So in the resort itself, your exceptions are going to be first butlers. So butlers can, and in my opinion should, receive tips. And then also with the spa, you do have the spa gratuities there. So those are really the only exceptions in resort. Outside of resort, I did mention earlier that you want to have some US currency on you. So for example, often you will have a baggage handler in the airport that's helping you with your bags. Usually like $1 per bag is appropriate on that sort of thing. Maybe you're going on excursion, you can tip your excursion tour guide. You can also tip your transfer driver. So there are a few outside resort exceptions to that you probably want to come prepared for in terms of a tip. But once you are in the resort itself, that's something where you know you can put your wallet away and not have to worry about that whatsoever. Number 8, the Sandals app, and particularly GINA, is your friend. But Addison, who's GINA, you might ask? Well, let me dive into that for you. There is a new feature on the app called GINA, and it replaced something called Loop, which has been around for a good few years. It is a real-time feedback and communication system that allows you to make sure that the quality of your stay is exactly where you want it to be. So, for example, let's say you do happen to face some challenge during your stay. You can go on GINA and you can explain this, to management and allow them to quickly rectify that issue for you without you having to go and hunt down a manager. Also, some requests. If you have a request, some more water bottles, you need extra towels, something like that, that you would like, for later in the day, you can make that request there on the app as well. Also, my personal favorite part of GINA is you can shout out amazing staff members. So these staff members, they work really hard, and they of course are working weekends. They're working over holidays for you. And so one of the best things that you can do, A, for their own personal satisfaction, but B, also in terms of incentives and moving up in their career, is to shout out great service. And of course, in the industry, we love it when we know who the top performers are so that we can continue to give those people a lot of the recognition that they deserve. And so let's say you have an amazing waiter or waitress, or you have just the best butler you've ever seen, or in the spa, oh my goodness, that therapist, she was just so sweet, and that massage was amazing. You can keep going. Water sports guys, whatever it might be. You can simply shout them out on the app, and they will know that, and they will be very happy about that. And that's also just a great way for you to spend such a little part of your time to really help someone else and give them the recognition they deserve. Number 9, transfers are always included, but you might consider an upgrade. Yeah, so when you visit any Sandals or Beaches Resort, you do have an included transfer. So this is a shared transfer, and this can be with other people. It can be anywhere from a large minivan all the way ranging to a large bus. It all depends on how many people are arriving into the airport and going to your same destination. Of course, there are some room categories which do include private transfers, and if you're not sure if that's something you're looking at, the top tier ones usually at a few of the resorts, you can of course get in touch. Again, hello@reliantdestinations.com, hello@reliantdestinations.com, and we can guide you through that and make sure you know about the inclusions with whatever you're thinking to book. Now, on the other side, if you are going to stay in a room which has this standard included transfer, but you do want something more private, maybe a bit more luxurious, upscale for you and your spouse, your partner, or whatever you were taking this trip for, you can even go with friends to Sandals. Don't forget that. So whenever you are thinking about this, know that at this moment, all of the different destinations and islands are offering private transfer upgrade options. This is something where you do want to ideally book this well before you're headed to paradise, so ideally months before it so they can sell out, but of course we can always check last minute for you. But it's something where you want to get that locked in, and you can do it one direction if you want, or you can do it as a return, as kind of a round trip transfer, all depending on what you're looking for your experience. Speaking of booking things in advance, this is where I will end with number 10, which is you want to consider booking spa in advance and also excursions in advance. So you can do this on your Sandals app, or you can do it simply by going to oee.sandals.com. Make sure to put in your booking number. You need to have a Sandals booking before you do this. But you can add anything you want, see the live availability, which days, which times, and that sort of thing. We have found that the most popular and best excursions and best spa treatments often will sell out in advance. So if that's something that you know in your heart you definitely want to do, definitely go ahead and pre-book that. I would say that typically you are allowed in resort to shift your time or something if you need, if there is that availability once you're there on site, if you figure out that you might need a little different arrangement, but it's always good to have something locked in so you have that at a minimum before you go. So there you have it, folks. Those are 10 things that if you are a first timer at Sandals that you definitely want to know. Again, I would love you to reach out to us at hello@reliantdestinations.com. If you're thinking to book this perfect trip to tropical paradise, if you need us to kind of look at the value of what you're doing, if you have some general questions, we would love to help. That's hello@reliantdestinations.com. Thanks again for stopping by this channel. There are so many more videos on this channel, so make sure to have a look at those. There are so many different topics and things you might be interested in. But for now, I wish you a very pleasant time browsing the rest of the channel, and we hope to see you in resort sometime. Take care.